Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. We welcome you today to a new program of Toward a Civilized World. Islam presented to the world a comprehensive model of life that brought to the woman from the abyss of humiliation and placed her at the Islamic pinnacle of greatness. It has given her pride and dignity. It has put her on high position and status. And by that, it has laid the foundation for a virtuous and pure Islamic society. Talking about the woman, the status of the woman, and dignity and complementarity, we're hosting today Professor Mimouni. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you.
Dr. Belghait, welcome. Starting our discussion, Dr. Mimouni, how does Islam view the status of women in society?
Well, what a heated question, what a heated issue. What a heated issue.
Indeed.
Why it is a heated issue? Because it's a central issue in any social project. And the other thing is that there are a lot of discussion, polemics about the position of Islam about women. Then we have to all people know that in the pre-Islamic situation, a woman or the girl, child girl, in a patriarchal society was buried alive because they preferred sons.
Yes.
You see? The other thing, women, they had no consideration. Why we said dignity first? Because this woman would be sold like
as
another
a slave.
person. As a slave. She was sold when her husband would die, she was sold. You see? Then all these considerations make us think that the Islamic status has improved very largely in the Islamic Ummah. And then why it is relevant today to speak about this topic? It is vital because any social philosophy, project of society, social system, state legislation is mentioning those conception of the woman and the rights of the woman. Religion in this has an important part because it delineates its status within its spiritual, moral, social, family, public, economic framework. Then, what is the relevance? That is the first thing. Then the other thing is about the major changes, because in the traditional society, maybe the discussion, polemics wouldn't uprise like that. But we are changing. We are in a complete transitional situation. Yes. From a tradition to a modern, between brackets, society, and it has very important repercussions, implications about the family. The traditional order is not operating, or is difficultly operating. There are changes that affect the position of women, that influence her autonomy, shapes the family, that destabilize family, and then this is important. Due to these changes, we can see there are widening gap into the interpretation of the status of women within the different tenets of the Islamic conception. Its rights, her place, her obligations by groups, by organizations, and so forth. There are new challenges. Then what is the real position? What the medial position according to the text?
The right position.
And there are some ill conceptions, that woman, Islam, is ill-treating women. Then we have to return to the status, onto the states, onto the verses of the Quran which are mentioning its high spiritual situation, social and so forth.
Yes, thank you, Doctor. Well,
maybe add into this, if you don't mind.
Please, yes.
Yes. During the Islamic civilization, we have never had an issue called the issue of woman, or woman has never been a problem during the Islamic civilization. So I think this should be the beginning of any discussion about this topic.
Yes.
And we need to make an agreement that the Almighty Allah, who revealed the Holy Quran to the Prophet Muhammad with the religion of Islam, has announced since the beginning that as a male and female we have been created from the same soul. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة. Means, all mankind, fear your Lord who has created you from the same soul, one soul. من نفس واحدة وجعل منها زوجها. That means he created, he made from it its pair, or a couple, or husband and wife. زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء. Nisa, male and female. We have a surah, chapter in the Holy Quran called the Surah of Nisa, women. This is 14 centuries ago. So in the Surah of Al-Hujurat, the Almighty Allah says, يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلق يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من تراب ثم من نطفة. In the Surah Al-Hujurat, Allah Ta'ala said, إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى. We have created you from a male and female. وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل. Allah Ta'ala gave us a phenomenon in the Surah Al-Layl, the chapter of the night. وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَى وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا تَجَلَّى. No one can discuss about the night and the day, the complementarity which exists between night and day. Allah has created the night to rest and the day to work. There is a complementarity. The problem between the night and the day is not a conflict or such a confronting situation. It is a kind of complementarity. And he said, وَمَا خَلَقَ الذَّكَرَ وَالْأُنْثَى إِنَّ سَعْيَكُمْ لَشَتَّى. It is like Sheikh al-Sha'rawi, rahimahullah, said, that as we agreed that the day, there is a complementarity between the day and the night, there is a complementarity between male and female. Human life cannot be stable with a male without female, or with a female without male. The Almighty Allah has created this life, human life, with this kind of complementarity between male and female. إِنَّ سَعْيَكُمْ لَشَتَّى, which means that your work, your specialty, your field of life should be different depending on your biological and physical abilities and capability.
Yeah.
So, as Professor Alexis Carrel mentioned in his book, famous book, The Man is Unknown, criticizing the Western civilization when they have eliminated this difference, when they did not take in consideration the differences between a male and female, right? He said, our biggest mistake in the Western civilization is when we have eliminated these differences between male and female. That means we have appointed a woman doing the work of a male and a male doing the work of female.
Yeah.
He said that this is one of the mistakes of the Western civilization. Yeah. He said, إِنَّ كُلَّ خَلِيَّةٍ, translated to Arabic, إِنَّ كُلَّ خَلِيَّةٍ مِنْ خَلَايَا الْمَرْأَةِ تنطق بأنها أنثى, means that every cell of a woman speaks that she is a female. So we have to take, because a woman can be pregnant, she needs to feed her baby and etc. So a man doesn't do that. He has another kind of job. So that's why Islam since the beginning has revealed, has solved this issue. Yes. That's why we have never had such problem during our civilization. Yes. The Prophet Muhammad asked us, ordained us to teach women as we teach men. طلب العلم فريضة على كل مسلم ومسلمة.
Yes, talking about this.
Muslim scholars have learned from male as they have learned from women. Al-Hafidh ibn Asakir, the famous Syrian historian, has learned from 80 women teachers. Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar al-Asqalani has learned, he had teachers as women, right? Women as teachers in Fath al-Bari, right? He has many women as teachers. We have never had such problem. Mm-hmm. Now the Western civilization, through globalization, they want to force the Muslim world to face the same problems they are facing, to import.
The Western world, yes.
I mean, maybe some of our people, they like to import others' problems, and the Western world wants to export his problems to the Muslim world. Yes. That's all.
That's all. Well, can you please tell us about the rights granted to women toward Islam and how they contribute to their dignity, to the dignity of women?
Maybe I leave that to Professor Mimouni.
Okay, Professor Mimouni, would you please
before that,
answer
because
us?
I would like to mention one thing.
Yes.
What Professor mentioned, one thing about min nafsin wahida, from one soul. He created from one soul. Yeah. This is very important, this word, because this is considering the same equality between man and woman on the spiritual, on the ontological, al-wujudi lil-mar'a, of the woman. The same thing. And it can not be said by the other religions who are considering that ontologically women is lower than man. Mm-hmm. The other thing he mentioned about zawjain also, zawj mentioned, it can be two sexes, of course, yani of man and woman, female and female. It also means zawjain, couple. It means a pair. It means a partner. In life, it's partner. Yeah. You see, this is important. I would mention one of our professor who died, rahimahullah, Professor Ahmed Arwa, who made two major books about Islam, Islam and civilization. He made a book in French, I don't know if it's translated in Arabic, L'Islam et la morale des sexes. Islam and akhlaq, الأخلاق بين الجنسين في الإسلام. He's saying something. Islam rests upon sidq. You see, it means sidq, truth. And truth about a situation, in a situation between man and woman. And he knows what is the nature of man and woman. He is not following the whims of individuals or groups, be it in the Jahiliyyah, which was burying the girl
alive.
Alive, yes, burying the girl alive. And he changed be it the new situation where there is confusion and there are words which are seemingly scientific, which are not gender identity now. Gender identity, that means you choose your own gender. you choose your جنس يعني تختار جنسك يعني الآن يعني which is completely against the nature of man. But what he says, truth. Then he said, on all equivocal situations, blurred situations, Islam is about truth. And he said, there are three criteria in the relation between man and woman, and very clear. First of all, the criteria of identity of the nafs al-insan, identity of between man and women. And he said, which implies equality, moral equality in front of God and in front of man. First of it. And same responsibility. The second criteria, which explain the difference. He said, criteria of difference, which implies a moral related with functions, related what he's saying, distribution, complementarity of the distribution of social roles.
Social role, yes.
He said, I cannot change. The man is fecunding. The woman is giving birth. You cannot change, which is natural law. Then there are obligations, but the function, if man, for example, a woman is giving birth, the husband has to take her with affection. He has to help her in this child birth. He has to give him, he has to protect her, provide her provisions, anything. This is the distribution of it. The third thing is the criteria of equity, which harmonize the rights and the duties between man and woman. And before this, we didn't I bring some of the surat, some of the verses in the Quran. There are lots, as he mentioned. I won't mention which one is a long verse, but it has its impact about the moral equality, the spiritual equality. Every woman, every man, woman, and mu'mina, which is doing his action, will be rewarded. And this is the first one, which is in Surah Al-Ahzab. I would say it in English and with accuracy. No Muslims, man and woman, for Muslim man and woman, for believing man and woman, for devout man and woman, for men and women who are patient and constant, the degree, for men and women who humble themselves, for men and women who give in charity, for men and women who fast, for men and women who guard the chastity, and for men and women who engage man in Allah's praise. For them has Allah prepared forgiveness and great reward. This is on the spiritual. Look at this image. The second verse is making the concrete action between man and Muslim. It's not only at the status, it is a dynamic status now. وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ. I translate. In Surah At-Tawbah, the believers, men and women, are protectors one of another. مُؤْمِنُونَ بَعْضِهِ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ. That is, protect each other. They enjoin, this is the objective of Islam. They enjoin what is just and forbid what is evil. They observe regular prayers, practice regular charity, and obey Allah and His Messenger. On them will Allah pour His mercy, for Allah is exalted in power and wise. Allah has promised to believers, men and women, He repeats, gardens and their which river flow to dwell therein, on beautiful mansions in garden, etc., etc.
Okay.
This is the verse of that. See.
Yes. Adding to this also, I think we need to inform our audience that in Islam, we know that Islam has elevated the level of a woman. Yes, he considered her as a noble person. And as a man can become righteous, woman in Islam can become righteous also, and pious. The first follower of the Prophet Muhammad was his wife, woman, Khadija, radiallahu anha. May Allah be pleased with her. She strengthened him, she motivated him, she supported him with her wealth. She put her wealth in the service of Islam and the Prophet, her husband. The first shaheed in Islam was a woman, Sumayya, the mother of Ammar ibn Yasir. The first martyr in Islam was a woman. The Holy Quran mentions about a woman who reached the level of righteousness, Mary, the mother of Jesus, peace be upon him. The mother of Jesus, as a righteous woman, the Holy Quran gives her as an example. The Quran mentioned a woman who was successful in leading her people to embrace the truth. Bilqis, the queen of Saba. وَأَسْلَمْتُ مَعَ سُلَيْمَانَ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. She led her people to follow the Prophet Sulaiman,
Yes.
and to embrace the truth. She was successful. That means she was mature, as Sheikh Al-Ghazali said in his writings, how this woman was very successful. In the Islamic civilization, we have women who were successful in teaching, in educating. Who is behind Ibn Badis? Who is behind Al-Bashir al-Ibrahimi? Who is behind our scholars, Ibn Taymiyyah, Al-Ghazali, Ibn Rushd? If I mention the list, their mothers, or their wives, right? That means this success of a man, as we say in Arabic, وَرَاءَ كُلَّ رَجُلَ عَظِيمٍ امْرَأَةٌ عَظِيمَةٌ. Behind the great man, always there is a great woman, right? So we believe in that strongly in Islam. That means a woman can reach a high level of righteousness and maturity. The Prophet Muhammad has elevated the level of women, the Sahabiyat. Among his companions, there were many women who were successful also, right? Who motivated the Sahaba to defend the truth and to sacrifice their lives for Islam.
Yes.
Right? So here I think when we talk about the right of women, Islam is the first religion where we find the rights to heritage, the inheritance rights, mawarith,
Yes.
and who gave great portions and parts in the inheritance to women, as a mother or as a wife or as a daughter,
as a
or
sister,
as a granddaughter, right? We know the rights between husband and wife, the rights and the duties, the obligations. Islam is clear about that since the early ages of Islam.
Yes.
Maybe in the recent centuries, 17th, 18th, in the Western world, they are still discussing if a woman is a human being or she is a devil. We know the famous conference or seminar in the Western world to discuss whether a woman is a human being or she is a devil.
Yes.
We know that a woman in some extremist religions is deprived to touch their sacred book.
Yes.
In Islam, we have many women, thousands of women who memorized the Holy Quran, who taught the Holy Quran, the hadith of the Prophet.
Yes.
We know the narrative specialization among women of Sahih al-Bukhari.
Yes.
Karima, who was one of the famous narrator of the Sahih al-Bukhari. I think when some secular people accuse Islam to put women in the lower level of life, I think either they don't know Islam, right, or they have something wrong against Islam. That's all.
Obviously. Thank you. Well, what can you tell us in conclusion about this subject?
Maybe we'd have to make another episode or show
because
about
we have a few
their rights,
left,
because they have to delineate with the rights. I would just mention that, to conclude probably, is that Islam, seeing that the woman was ill-treated in other situations, is giving over psychological importance. For example, he's saying that the Prophet ﷺ saying is that make equality between your children. If I would favor the girl for the psychological aspect, the affection.
Yes.
You see, about the wife is the same. There are psychological dimensions over this. Before we speak, there is, for example, as a mother. The title of this show is about the paradise and the feet of the mother. You see, then this is a complete system. Before we speak about the detailed rights and things like that. We should make another maybe episode about the rich women.
Because there are people who can argue, for example, about hijab, about some restrictive rules, why Islam has ordained a woman to cover her physical beauty and so on. I think we need another session, as Professor Mimouni mentioned, because we need to clarify such things, right? To convince our people and the others that when Islam bring a legislation of something, it is in the interest of a woman and family, and in the interest of a human being, a male and family, and the union of the society and the stability of our human life.
Yes. Thank you, doctors. We have arrived now to the end of today's discussion. Thank you for being with us. So goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.